Look, I need you to picture something with me for a second. You're at your cousin's housewarming party. The place is gorgeous. Marble countertops, that fancy pendant lighting, a backyard big enough to actually do something with. And everyone's there hugging her, telling her how proud they are, how she finally made it. Your aunt pulls you aside and goes, "So, when are you buying yours? You're still throwing money away on rent, you know?" And you just stand there, smiling, nodding, holding a plate of barbecue and mac and cheese like it's a life raft. Because deep down, you've been asking yourself the same question for 2 years now, maybe 3. You've done the mental math at 2 a.m. more times than you'd like to admit. You've opened Zillow tabs or private property tabs or whatever platform haunts your country, and you've closed them just as fast because the numbers never quite add up. Here's the thing. Everyone, and I mean everyone, your parents, your uncles, your coworker who bought a duplex last year and won't shut up about it, they all tell you the same thing. Rent is throwing money away. Buy a house. Build equity. It's the best investment you'll ever make. And you believe them because it sounds right. It feels right. A house is solid. A house is yours. Rent is just gone. But here's what nobody tells you. And this is the part that's going to make some people in the comments very, very angry. The math they're using, the math your parents used, the math every well-meaning relative at every wedding has been pushing on you, it's broken. It's been broken for a while. And if you run the actual numbers, the real numbers, with every line item included, the answer to should I rent or should I buy is almost never what you think it is. So let's fix that today. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through the real math. No fluff, no it depends on your situation cop-out answers. Actual numbers. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to run this calculation for yourself, for your city, for your salary, for your life. And I promise you, whatever decision you make after this, it won't be because your aunt guilt-tripped you at a party. Let's get into it. Okay, so first I need to tell you the biggest lie you've been sold. Ready? Here it is. Rent is throwing money away. That sentence, that one sentence, has probably caused more bad financial decisions than almost anything else I can think of. And I want to break it down because once you see it, you can't unsee it. When you pay rent, yes, that money is gone. You don't get it back. Fair enough. But when you pay a mortgage, a huge chunk of that money is also gone. It's just gone in ways that are hidden from you. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say you buy a home for $200,000. You put down 20%, which is $40,000. So you're taking out a loan for $160,000. At today's interest rates, roughly around 7% for a 30-year fixed mortgage in the U.S., your monthly payment is going to be about $1,065 just for principal and interest. Here's the part nobody tells you. In the first year of that mortgage, out of every single payment you make, about $930 goes to interest. Interest. Not to the house, not to you, not to building anything. Straight to the bank. Gone. The same way rent is gone. Only about $135 actually goes toward the loan itself. So when your aunt says rent is throwing money away, what she's not saying is that mortgage interest is also throwing money away. You're just throwing it at a bank instead of a landlord. And in year 1, you're throwing way more of it. But wait. It gets worse because nobody in this conversation ever talks about property taxes, homeowners insurance, HOA fees if you have them, private mortgage insurance if you put down less than 20%, and the big one, the one that will punch you in the stomach the first time it happens, maintenance and repairs. Here's a statistic that genuinely shocked me when I first saw it. According to data that's been floating around from Bankrate and various housing studies over the past few years, the average American homeowner spends somewhere between $6,000 and $18,000 a year on maintenance, repairs, utilities, and hidden costs that renters simply don't pay. A year, every year, whether you have that money or not. Your water heater is going to die. Not maybe, will. That's $1,500 to $3,000. Your roof has a lifespan, and when it's up, that's $10,000 to $20,000. HVAC system, another $5,000 to $10,000. The dishwasher, the washer and dryer, the fridge, the garage door opener, that mysterious crack in the foundation that your home inspector somehow missed. All of it, yours. Forever. When you rent and your water heater explodes, you call your landlord. You might be annoyed. You might have to shower at the gym for 2 days, but you don't pay a dime. When you own and your water heater explodes, you pay. And if you don't have the cash, you put it on a credit card at 24% interest, and now you're really bleeding money. So let's actually run this thing. Let's stop talking in theory and let's do the math that your aunt refused to do. $200,000 house, $40,000 down payment, $160,000 mortgage at 7% over 30 years. Monthly principal and interest, $1,065. Property taxes, averaging about 1.1% nationally, that's about $183 a month. Homeowners insurance, roughly $125 a month. Maintenance, using the 1% of home value per year rule that most financial planners use, that's another $167 a month. Add it all up, you're looking at roughly $1,540 a month, minimum. Before you've paid for electricity, water, internet, or the lawnmower you now have to buy because the grass doesn't cut itself anymore. Now let's compare. In a lot of cities, you can rent a comparable place for $1,200 to $1,400 a month. Everything included. No surprise bills, no $3,000 Saturday when the pipe bursts. So right off the bat, you're paying $140 to $340 more every single month to own. And that's assuming nothing goes wrong. Now I can hear you already. You're typing it in the comments, but I'm building equity. Rent builds nothing. Okay, let's talk about that, because this is where it gets really interesting. Remember that mortgage payment? In year one, only about $135 a month actually goes toward the loan. That's your equity building. $135 a month for the whole year. That's about $1,600 of equity in your first year of owning this house. But hold on, you also spent $40,000 on the down payment. Plus closing costs, which in the U.S. run between 2 and 5% of the home price. So let's say another $6,000. That's $46,000 out of your pocket on day one. If you take in that $46,000 and put it into a low-cost index fund that tracks the S&P 500, which has historically returned about 10% a year on average, in 1 year, you'd have made roughly $4,600. Just sitting there while you did nothing. So the renter who invested that down payment made $4,600 in year one. The homeowner built $1,600 in equity. That's a $3,000 gap in the homeowner's first year already. And this is the part that made my jaw drop when I first really sat with it. This gap doesn't close quickly. It compounds, because that $4,600 the renter made, next year, it earns returns too, and the year after that, and the year after that. This is the magic of compound interest, and it is brutally, ruthlessly on the renter's side in the early years. Now look, I'm not saying buying is always bad. I need to be really clear about that because I know how comment sections work. I'm saying the math is way more complicated than rent is throwing money away. The math actually depends on something really specific, and this is the big reveal I want you to walk away with today. The answer to rent versus buy comes down to one single question. How long are you going to stay in that house? That's it. That's the whole game. Everything else is noise. Here's why. When you buy a home, you pay massive upfront costs. Closing costs, inspection fees, moving costs, furniture for a bigger space, all of it. In most markets, it takes somewhere between 5 and 7 years of ownership just to break even, just to get back to zero. 5 to 7 years of paying that mortgage, building that slow equity, writing out hopefully some appreciation in home value before you've even recouped what it costs you to buy in the first place. If you sell before that break-even point, you lose money, almost always. Because when you sell, you pay another 6% to real estate agents. You might pay closing costs again. You might have to fix things up to make it sellable. So here's the rule, and I want you to tattoo this on your brain. If you don't know for a fact, not hope, not think, know that you're going to stay in that house for at least 7 years, renting is almost certainly the better financial move. Almost always. In almost every major city. And think about your own life for a second. Be honest with yourself. What's the likelihood that in the next 7 years, you don't change jobs, don't want to move cities, don't have a kid, don't get divorced, don't need to take care of an aging parent, don't decide you want a bigger place or a smaller place, or a place in a different neighborhood because the one you're in changed? For most people under 35, the honest answer is the likelihood is pretty low. Life moves fast. Careers move faster. And locking yourself into a 30-year mortgage on a specific house in a specific neighborhood when your life might look completely different in 3 years is, and I'm going to say this plainly, one of the worst financial traps you can walk into with a smile on your face. Now here's where it flips. Here's where buying actually becomes the right move. If you are absolutely certain you have a stable job and a stable city, you know this is where you want to raise your kids, you've run the numbers, and the total monthly cost of ownership isn't wildly more than rent in your area, and you're planning to stay for a decade or more, then yes, buying can absolutely make sense, not because it's a magical investment. Not because rent is throwing money away, but because over 10, 15, 20 years, you get 3 things working in your favor. 1, your mortgage payment stays roughly the same while rents keep climbing. That's huge. In 15 years, your neighbor's rent might have doubled while your mortgage payment is still exactly what it was. That's real money. 2, you do slowly build equity. Slowly being the key word. But after 10 or 15 years, a meaningful chunk of your monthly payment is going toward principal instead of interest. The math finally starts working for you. 3, home values do tend to appreciate over long periods, not as much as people think. Historically, U.S. home prices have appreciated about 3 to 4% a year on average, which is roughly the rate of inflation. So real, inflation-adjusted returns on home value are actually pretty modest. But over 20 years, modest compounds into something real. So the real answer, the honest answer, is this. Renting and buying aren't good or bad. They're tools. And like any tool, you use the one that fits the job. If your job is, I'm going to live in one place for the next 15 plus years, and I have stable income and an emergency fund, and I've run the numbers, buy the house. If your job is anything else, rent. And take the difference between what you would have spent on a down payment and all those hidden costs and invest it aggressively. Because here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. A well-diversified, low-cost index fund portfolio has historically outperformed residential real estate by a significant margin over most long-time periods. Studies from places like the Federal Reserve and various housing economists have shown this again and again. The S&P 500 has returned about 10% a year on average over the last several decades. U.S. residential real estate, adjusted for inflation and the costs of ownership, has returned much less. The house your parents keep telling you to buy? It's probably not the investment they think it is. It's a place to live, which is valuable, which is worth something, but it's not the wealth-building machine that your aunt at the party seems to think it is. Okay, so let me give you the actionable part, because I don't want you walking away from this video with just a bunch of skepticism. I want you walking away with a plan. Here's what I want you to do this week, not someday, not when you have time, this week. First, find out what your all-in monthly cost of ownership would be if you bought a home in your target area right now. Not just the mortgage payment from the Zillow calculator, because that calculator is lying to you. It doesn't include maintenance. It doesn't include realistic insurance. It sometimes doesn't even include taxes properly. So add it all up yourself. Mortgage, taxes, insurance, HOA, and 1% of the home's value per year for maintenance. That's your real number. Second, compare that to what it would cost to rent a comparable place in the same area, not a smaller place, not a worse neighborhood, comparable. Third, take the difference between the down payment you'd need and zero, because that's the money you'd have available to invest if you kept renting, and run a simple compound interest calculator on it. Assume 7% annual returns, which is a conservative long-term average for a diversified portfolio. See what that number becomes in 10 years, in 15, in 20. Fourth, and this is the most important one, be radically honest with yourself about how long you're actually going to stay. Not how long you'd like to stay, how long you actually will. Look at your career. Look at your relationship. Look at your family plans. Give yourself a real number. If that number is less than 7 years, rent. Don't even think about it. Rent, invest the difference, and laugh all the way to the bank when you're 40 and have a portfolio your homeowner friends would kill for. If that number is more than 7 years, and especially if it's more than 10, and you've run the real numbers and they make sense, then sure, buy. But buy with your eyes open, knowing that it's a lifestyle choice as much as a financial one, knowing that you're trading flexibility for stability, knowing that the first 5 years are going to feel like you're bleeding money, because you are. Look, I know this isn't what most people want to hear. I know it goes against every piece of advice your family has ever given you. I know that in some cultures, owning property is tied up with identity, with success, with what it means to be a real adult. I get it. I'm not trying to tear that down, but I am trying to tell you that the math you've been sold is not the real math. And for an entire generation of young people right now, especially with interest rates where they are, with home prices where they are, with how much life has changed in the last 10 years, the old rules just don't apply the way they used to. Your grandparents bought a house for 3 times their annual income at a 4% interest rate and stayed there for 40 years. That worked. That was a good investment because the math at the time actually supported it. You are being asked to buy a house for 7 or 8 or 10 times your annual income at 7% interest and stay there long enough to make it worth it. That's a completely different calculation. And pretending it's the same is how people end up house poor, stressed out, unable to travel, unable to change jobs, unable to breathe, just to keep up with a mortgage on a house they bought because someone told them renting was throwing money away. Please, run your own numbers. Don't take my word for it. Don't take your aunt's word for it. Open a spreadsheet. Open a calculator. Do the math for your city, your salary, your life. Because this is one of the biggest financial decisions you will ever make. And the idea that you should make it based on vibes and family pressure is genuinely insane when you say it out loud. The people who win with money, I mean really win, not the people who look rich, but the people who actually build wealth, they run the numbers every time. They don't let emotions or tradition or pressure make these choices for them. So be that person. Run the numbers. Make the decision that actually fits your life. And the next time someone at a party tells you you're throwing money away on rent, just smile, because you'll know something they don't. You'll know the real math. And if this video helped you see this decision a little more clearly, Do me a favor and share it with that friend you know is about to do something they'll regret in about 6 months. Seriously, send it to them. They'll thank you later. Also, subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification button so you keep getting videos like this. Until next time, stay smart with your money.